Air France Flight 447. Black boxes spent 2 years on the ocean floor at a depth of nearly 4,000 meters. When they were finally recovered, the data inside revealed a terrifying descent that lasted 3.5 minutes, and a pilot who held the aircraft in a stall the entire way down without realizing it. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what happened in the cockpit, why the technology designed to save the plane actually contributed to the crash, and how this disaster forced the aviation industry to rewrite training protocols worldwide. June 1st, 2009. An Airbus, a 330, disappeared over the Atlantic Ocean. 228 people on board. No distress call. No emergency transmission. The aircraft simply vanished. The search began immediately, but the ocean is vast, and the answers were lying 4,000 meters below the surface. Air France. Flight 447 departed Rio de Janeiro at 1929 UTC on May 31st, 2009. Destination: Paris, Charles de Gaulle Airport. Flight time: approximately 11 hours. The aircraft was an Airbus A330-203, registration FGZCP, 216 passengers, 12 crew members. The captain was Marc Dubois, 58 years old, 11,000 hours of flight experience. The first officer was Pierre-Cédric Bonin, 32 years old, less experienced but fully qualified. The second officer was David Robert, 37 years old, senior to Bonin, but less experienced than the captain. The flight proceeded normally for the first few hours. Routine communications with air traffic control, standard cruise altitude of 35,000 feet. Weather ahead was forecasted to be turbulent. The aircraft was approaching the Intertropical Convergence Zone, the ITCZ, a band of thunderstorms that circles the equator. Pilots fly through this region regularly. It is not unusual, but it requires attention. At approximately 0200 UTC, the flight entered the storm system. Captain Dubois had been resting in the crew rest area. Bonin and Robert were in the cockpit. The aircraft was on autopilot, flying through moderate turbulence. Then the system failed. At 0210 UTC, ice crystals began forming on the aircraft's Pitot probes. Pitot probes are external sensors that measure airspeed. They are critical to the flight control system. When ice blocked the probes, the airspeed readings became unreliable. The autopilot disconnected. The flight computers switched to alternate law, a degraded mode with fewer automatic protections. The aircraft was now being flown manually, in the middle of a thunderstorm, at night, at 35,000 feet. Bonin, the less experienced pilot, was now flying the aircraft, and he made a critical error. He pulled back on the side stick. The aircraft's nose pitched up. The plane began to climb. Airspeed began to drop. In normal conditions, this would trigger immediate warnings. But the unreliable airspeed data confused the system. The stall warning activated, then deactivated, then activated again. The crew did not understand what was happening. Bonin continued pulling back. The aircraft climbed to 38,000 feet. Airspeed dropped below the minimum required to maintain flight. The aircraft stopped flying. It entered an aerodynamic stall, and it began to fall. If you want to follow this search like it's happening in real time, hit subscribe. I track every move so you don't have to. From 0210 UTC to 0214 UTC, Air France 447 fell 38,000 feet. 3 minutes and 30 seconds. The aircraft was in a deep stall the entire way down, nose high, wings producing no lift, falling almost vertically through the night sky. Inside the cockpit, the crew did not realize they were stalled. The stall warning was sounding, but intermittently. When airspeed dropped too low, the system determined the data was invalid, so the warning stopped. When airspeed readings briefly recovered, the warning resumed. This created confusion. The pilots believed the warnings were false. They did not trust the instruments. Bonin continued holding the nose up. Robert, the more senior officer, did not realize what Bonin was doing. Because Airbus side sticks are not mechanically linked, each pilot has an independent control. There is no physical feedback. Robert could not feel that Bonin was pulling back, and Bonin did not verbalize his control inputs clearly. Captain Dubois returned to the cockpit, but by then, the situation was beyond recovery. The aircraft was falling at over 10,000 feet per minute. Altitude was disappearing. The ocean was rushing up. At 0214 UTC, the aircraft struck the water. The impact was catastrophic. The fuselage broke apart. All 228 people on board were killed instantly. This story changes quietly and suddenly. Subscribing is how you don't miss the moment it finally breaks. Within days, floating wreckage was found. 50 bodies were recovered, but the main wreckage remained lost. The black boxes were somewhere on the ocean floor, but the Atlantic is deep, and the search area was vast. The first search efforts failed. The wreckage was not where investigators expected. For nearly 2 years, the location remained unknown. Then on April 3rd, 2011, deep-sea search teams found the debris field. Depth, 3,900 meters, nearly 13,000 feet, 2.4 miles below the surface, on a mountainous section of the ocean floor. In May 2011, remotely operated vehicles recovered the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder. Both devices had been underwater for nearly 2 years, exposed to immense pressure, saltwater corrosion, extreme cold. But the data inside was perfectly preserved, and what it revealed shocked investigators. The flight data recorder showed that the aircraft had been flyable. There was no structural failure, no engine problem, no fire. The Pitot probes had iced over, but this was a temporary condition. Within seconds, the probes had thawed. Airspeed indications returned to normal. The autopilot could have been re-engaged, but the crew never recognized the stall. The cockpit voice recorder revealed the confusion. Bonin was pulling back on the stick, but he never clearly communicated this to Robert. Robert was trying to diagnose the problem, but he did not realize Bonin was holding the nose up. Captain Dubois returned, but he arrived too late to understand the situation. The French Bureau of Inquiry and Analysis concluded the crash was caused by a combination of factors: technical failure, the icing of the Pitot probes, human error, the crew's failure to recognize and recover from the stall, training deficiency. The pilots had never practiced high-altitude stall recovery. Design issue. The Airbus side stick system prevented the crew from knowing who was controlling the aircraft. The findings were devastating, but they led to global change. If you like this video, please subscribe. We are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers and create more interesting videos with your support. After Air France 447, the aviation industry implemented sweeping reforms. Mandatory upset prevention and recovery training. Every commercial pilot now practices high-altitude stall recovery. Pitot probe replacements. Airlines worldwide replaced older Thales probes with models less susceptible to icing. Improved flight tracking. The industry moved toward real-time satellite tracking to prevent aircraft from disappearing. Angle of attack indicators. There was a push for cockpit displays showing angle of attack even when airspeed data is unreliable. Longer pinger batteries. Flight recorder locator beacons now last 90 days instead of 30. In April 2023, a French court acquitted both Air France and Airbus of manslaughter charges. The court acknowledged faults had been committed, but ruled that a direct causal link could not be proven for criminal prosecution. The families disagreed, but the legal process had concluded. What remains is the legacy: 228 lives lost, and an industry that learned from tragedy. Let me know your thoughts below.